G'day guys, Mac with the Outer Circle. Previously I did a video on the different types of dreadnoughts available to the legions. Well, today I want to cover Legion Terminator types. Specifically, the actual unit entry Legion Terminator. This is an elite's choice for the Legiones Astartes Space Marines in the Horus Heresy 30k game system. So, sorry 40k guys, I guess this won't be any help to you in your weird system. Now, for 30k players, this does not cover the Legion-specific Terminators, like the Phoenix Terminators, the Gorgon Terminators, the Ultramarines, not that they have rules or models yet, but this covers the basic Terminator type that every single Legion has access to. Simple. Why am I choosing this for a topic though? Because unlike something like Tactical Marines, where people understand the rules, the uses, it's the same for everyone basically, Legion Terminators are a little bit different, because they have access to Legion-specific war gear, and the two different types of Terminator armor actually vary quite a bit in what they allow you to do, tabletop-wise. And a lot of people are confused by this when they first start getting into 30k, and they start getting into those sort of 1,000 points plus categories. They might have a box of Betrayal at Celt or Burning Prospero, and they're going, hey, is this type of Terminator an effective unit for my army, or maybe I should trade it for something else? Well, I want to cover that sort of basic information in this episode today. So, you can also consider this as a bit of a is it shit episode. Shock, spoiler, they're not. So which Legion Terminator is the Chad of Terminators? Well, up the top in the center, you'll notice that we have the stat line for the Legion Terminators. It's exactly the same for both types until it comes to the invulnerable save. It's a 5+ for the Taurus and a 4+ for the Cataphracti. And technically, Indominus Terminator armor, that's the stuff they wear in 40k, the Terminator armor in 40k, that can be used in 30k, and it would count basically as a Taurus armor, although stats-wise it should technically be different, but we're not talking technicalities here, we're talking what you can do on the tabletop. You can use the stuff. So, Cataphracti is tougher by default. Does that make it better? No, it doesn't, but that one thing it does better, compared to the 3 things it does worse, does make it very good and very useful armor. I liked Cataphracti, I use it all the time. Passing half of the invulnerable saves directed my way compared to passing only a third of them, that's a huge deal. That's a lot of extra survivability. A squad that has 10 Terminators starting out on the board, walking across it, getting to the other side with 5, while the enemy gets across with 3, that's a huge deal. But what are the downsides? Well, Tartarus can still run. That means you have mobility. Now, mobility is a huge issue, and my friend Dom, who has a lovely World Eaters army, is one of the most beautiful in the world, in my opinion. We were playing recently his World Eaters versus my Shattered Legions, White Scars, and Iron Hands. And thanks to the placement of terrain, with a set of craters blocking his advance with his units across the table, because he sort of got funneled through a corridor, he had Cataphracti Terminators, Red Butchers. But the Cataphracti armor slowed them right down. Difficult terrain. Through these craters. It basically took them 3 turns to get through the craters. Because it wasn't just that they were walking into them. This close combat unit that had no shooting and had every opportunity to run could not because of the armor. Without a transport, they had to foot slog it, taking 3 turns to cross 12 inches of craters. That's a huge deal, and it wasn't helping things that I was dropping graviton shots into it wherever I had the chance in order to slow them down further. He did eventually get out of that quagmire and hand the ass to one of my squads, but the point is it took him till the 5th turn of the game to get a unit that should theoretically have been in combat in the 2nd turn of the game across the board due entirely to their armor. On the other hand, Tartarus Terminator armor, he would have had the chance to go 3 to 4 additional inches per turn with his run moves. So that again is a huge deal. Getting into close combat in turn 3 or 4 compared to turn 5, you can make a game-changing difference if you can get in that much earlier in the game. 2 turns is a big deal in 40k and 30k. So, running, that's important. What about sweeping advance? Well, in 30k, being able to run down units is a real thing. Marines can be broken and run down. There is no, and they shall know no fear. Tartarus can do it. You can get lucky in a combat, and I've seen it before. I had a friend who had a dreadnought, of all things, with one arm, and it was a Kyrie's assault cannon, and it kicked a Marine to death, won the combat, ran down a squad of, I think it was 14 Imperial Fist breaches with an Apothecary and Stone Gauntlet. Completely improbable victory, but it happened. Same thing with Taurus. Taurus can win that combat improbably, against all odds, taking the head-on charge of 20 World Eaters, coming out alive, and can run them down, sweeping advance. Cataphracti, on the other hand, no. You will sit put and watch the enemy run away from you while you scratch your balls. That's a big downside. Alright, what about Overwatch? Well, less useful in regular games of 30k, as we know, but can come in handy with 2 particular legions, that being the Salamanders and the Death Guard, because Death Guard have chem munitions and Salamanders have boosted heavy flamers. For everyone else though, Overwatch is pretty mediocre, won't really do much for them. Unless it's of course Zone Mortalis, because then you can fire a full ballistic skill and suddenly Terminators become very scary, especially Alpha Legion ones with Bane strike ammunition fighting Marines. Fighting Terminators though, they're fucked. They're not going to do much to them. But Overwatch, that's a big deal. You can potentially kill enemy units and even up the numbers when you're on the receiving end of a charge. That's huge. But, as it stands, are those 3 things, running, sweeping, and Overwatch, better than having increased survivability? It's a tough one, guys, and I don't have the definitive answer. After all of that, I can't give it to you. But I can give you situations and legions where the choice becomes clear-cut. And I'll do that for you now. So, our different legion types. I've listed all of the legions in this lovely little chart. I've listed what weapon options are available to them, what the boosts available to them in their armor is, and what other types of specialist war gear they may have available. Wherever I've noticed a little asterisk or star next to the item, it pretty much means it's just for the character in that unit, the squad sergeant. And where I've listed 2 stars is because it's also only a Rite of War item. And I believe there's only 1 item on this list that's Rite of War specifically. So, Dark Angels. The only weapon they get is a stasis grenade harness. What does it do? It basically lowers the enemy's weapon skill by 1 the turn you charge them. It's handy. Doesn't stack with your Legion trait, as we discussed in yesterday's video. Anyone with a sword, which shouldn't be any Terminators, because power swords are shit on Terminators. Power axes, power mauls, power fists, chain fists, lightning claws, all better options. Even a single lightning claw is a better option than a power sword, because the power sword doesn't get extra attacks on a Terminator because it's paired with a combi bolter, not a pistol weapon. So you're never going to have swords, you're never going to get the bonus from Dark Angels for being Dark Angels. And also, side note, if you're running Pride of the Legion with Dark Angels, where your troops become, you can take Terminators as troops, that syncs up really badly with the Dark Angels rules, where if they have less units than the other guy at the end of the game, they lose D3 victory points. Well, if you also lost all your Terminators, then you're handing over some more victory points. So don't stack that, it's a bad combination for you. Free advice. So, Dark Angels currently, they don't get much out of either of these 2 Terminator types. But if you do take them, stasis grenades aren't a bad choice. You can take grenade launchers, combi grenade launchers, or you can take grenade harness with the stasis grenades. In any case, it will make hitting the other guy a little bit easier, but you really want to take note of who the other guy is. So, frankly, Tartarus or Cataphractii are about equally as effective in Dark Angels. The choice really comes down to whether or not you have a transport. A transport will determine which of these types you choose. For the Emperor's Children, the only upgrade they can give their unit is the Phoenix Spear, or unique upgrade. That will allow the Sergeants to strike at AP2 and Initiative on the charge. It's okay, but it's just the Sergeant, and after that it reverts to essentially a power sword. Not the greatest of weapons. So you've otherwise got stock vanilla Terminators. Again, just like with Dark Angels, Tartarus or Cataphractii entirely depends with this legion on whether or not you have a transport option. Alright, Iron Warriors. Nothing, and more nothing. There are no upgrades or items that you can give the Tartarus and Cataphractii Terminators from your Legion War Gear selections. At all. Period. Zip. So, for Legion Terminators, I'm not going to say they're bad, not at all, because they're Terminators that will never fall back from getting shot. That's handy. Very good at keeping objectives, but that's true of any Legion. So, pros and cons here, they're not the best Terminators, by far. They are the most generic of all Terminators. The White Scars. The Sergeant has the option of the Power Glaive. You'll notice it's in green, whereas the previous weapons were in a yellow-orange colour. Sorry for the colourblind people out there. They're in a different paler shade of grey, maybe? I don't know. The Power Glaive is in green because it's basically a must-take. You will take this item on your squad sergeant. It's just to be stupid not to. So, yeah, that's a thing. Your squad sergeant will be better, but inherently your Terminators are not much better than anyone else's. The re-rolling 1s to wound, that's handy though. So it makes Power Fists a lot more deadly than they are, because we all know what it's like to roll the dreaded 1 to wound with Power Fists. And Thunder Hammers, things like that. Alright, the Space Wolves. They have some great Legion rules for their Terminators, but no war gear to go along with it. That said, the Varagia aren't exactly winning any awards as the greatest Terminator unit of all time, so Tartarus or Cataphractii? That's a tough one. Again, I probably lean towards Tartarus with the Space Wolves. The ability for boosted charge distances, things like that, running, getting into close combat faster, keeping up with your infantry, being able to hit right behind them is really good with the Tartarus. Whereas the Cataphractii is so slow, whilst all your Grey Hunters or Grey Slayers, whatever they're called in 30k, whilst they're getting into combat in turn 2, thanks to being able to run and charge in the same turn, things like that, well, your Tartarus can be there the next turn. They can run, they just can't charge straight afterwards, so they'll keep up the pace, whereas the Cataphractii, on the other hand, will have to walk, and walk, and walk. Now again, if you've got vehicles, sure, chuck them in vehicles, you might get your money's worth. Alright, Imperial Fists. This Legion's where it starts to get interesting. They do have a unique weapon in the Assault Cannon. But the Assault Cannon's not a great weapon. Heavy Flamers are probably the most versatile weapon to put on Terminators. They're just always handy. The Plasma Blast Gun is a much better weapon, basically being a 2-shot plasma weapon. So most people take those. However, the thing you do want to take is the Storm Shield. And the Storm Shield, it's available to the Imperial Fists. It gives you a 3+ invulnerable save. Now here's the catch. It has nothing to do with the Terminator armor you wear. In this case, why the fuck would you pick anything other than Tartarus? Now what's the downside of a Storm Shield? Well, you lose your ranged weapon. And, well, Imperial Fists get bolt gun bonuses, but having 3+ invulnerable save Tartarus? That's huge. That is a huge deal. A few single lightning cores, probably just 2 of them, for a little killing power, for power armor. And basically filling out the rest of the squad with a mix of power fists and chain fists. You're not going wrong with the Tartarus option here. Just remember to put a grenade harness on your sergeant so those charges through difficult terrain aren't exactly impeding you and making you strike last with those delicious claws that you may have. Lightning claws, the forgotten weapons. Yeah, it's a no-brainer taking the storm shields on Tartarus armor. Cataphracti is just not worth it, frankly, for the Imperial Fists, not when you have the Storm Shield option, unless you're trying to run a gun line with your Terminator armor. And honestly, the Tartarus armor being able to Overwatch is the better gun line than the Cataphracti. Now, in other, they have a blue, which is a super special do take this thing, and that's Teleport. Now, the only time Cataphracti can keep up with Tartarus mobility is when you teleport them into the enemy's deployment zone. Basically negates the fact that you can't run. But you can't run, and when you teleport in, you're in a nice big pile of bodies. Now what happens to nice big piles of Marines in 30k? Well, unlike 40k, there's consequences and penalties to stacking all your shit in one pile, and the consequence is basically things like demolisher cannons, even heavy flamers, can quickly hit entire units and the casualties build up for you. You start losing Terminators sheerly by the fact you have to make a bajillion saves. Well, Teleport with Taurus doesn't have that problem because you run the unit. Even if you roll a 1-inch separation between each model immediately changes how many get hit by direct hits from things like blast weapons. Now, a central shot fired from a Vindicator can still hit most of the squad, but it might not hit as many models. It might not. And that's a big deal, because that's the sort of thing that's just going to destroy you. Whether or not you have a 4+ save or a 5+ save, getting hit with a Demolisher Shell is a great way to test out your survivability. So, being able to equip teleportation on Imperial Fists Terminators with Storm Shields, and especially if you combine it with their Rite of War, the Stone Gauntlet, where you're looking at toughness fucking 5 Terminators with Storm Shields, Tartarus, all the way. Alright, the Night Lords. They have access to a weapon. It's the one weapon in white in this whole list, because to me it's take it or leave it, and that's the Chain Glaive. Yes, it's a decent weapon, but it's not a game-winning weapon, and frankly you'll often be better served by a simple Power Fist or Thunderhammer than the Chain Glaive. Okay, bit better strength, some rending, sure, but a Thunderhammer is a lot better strength. It's going to ignore armor, and it's going to concuss the things that can survive your attacks. To me, that's just better than the Chain Glaive. But on your standard squad sergeants, like Tactical Marines, that kind of thing, the Chain Glaive is a good weapon. But Night Lords also have access to the Teleport option. And in this case, the same rules apply. Tartarus armor, you can run, spread out a bit when you arrive. The Cataphracti, you have to stay put. And the good thing about Tartarus is, if you are deep striking into someone's territory, chances are they are going to get a charge off on you, because you have to sit there for a turn. Therefore, the Overwatch option on Tartarus is a good thing. Again, that Overwatch becomes a big deal. Alright, Blood Angels. The only bonus weapon they get is the Assault Cannon. Just like Imperial Fists, take it or leave it, it's not great. There are units which benefit from Assault Cannons in the Blood Angels, the Dreadnoughts basically, and that's about it. Maybe a couple of tanks, like making Baal Predators for example. But yeah, you're not winning any awards for taking a squad of Terminators just to take Assault Cannons. Considering the Blood Angels' special rules, again, Tartarus is probably going to serve you better, constantly moving from combat to combat in Carmine Fury, yeah. Iron Hands. Another legion that gets basically no bonuses to their Terminators, but your Terminators are automatically rock hard because of the fact they're Iron Hands. Any shooting that's done towards them, -1 to the strength of the weapon. Suddenly things that are strength 8 aren't instant-killing your Terminators, so having things like Apothecaries in your squads dramatically increases the survivability over other legions. And the one upgrade option they have that's special to their legion is the Cyber Familiar. And the Cyber Familiar is a fantastic option, +1 invul save. You're talking 3+ invulnerable on Cataphracti, and you're turning Tartarus armor on the Squad Sergeant into Cataphracti, essentially with none of the drawbacks. It's like 10 points, just take it. Apart from that, your Legion Terminators are probably better in this case. I think the Gorgons are a fantastic Terminator unit, even if their rules are a bit bizarre. Having used the Gorgons at multiple events now, they're a fantastic unit. I don't know why I doubted them for so long. I guess they're just one of those, on paper they don't look so great, but essentially they're Tartarus armor, the Gorgons, for all intents and purposes, and they do just fucking fine, despite it. Alright, World Eaters, oddly enough, have the option of changing out their power weapons for chain axes, and whilst very thematic and fluffy, it's very underwhelming. So, power axes are a better option, keeping fluffy and looking cool, but they also have access to Kadare weapons, which are a mixed bag, to say the least. I never see anyone do it, really, with World Eaters, but technically the rules do allow it, because it says anyone who has access to a power weapon may take a Kadare weapon instead. Things like Meteor Hammers, Executioner Chain Axes. I don't see them being able to kill other Terminators with them, ever. I don't even see them killing Marines very efficiently, but Terminators with Kadare weapons going up against Mechanicum and Militia and Solar Auxilia, that would be an interesting matchup. I never really thought it through too much, but the heck would actually be pretty strong. Alright, that's a unique niche that they can fulfill. Okay, Ultramarines. Nothing, nada, zip, no upgrade options for you. Invictus Suzerain's Legatine Axes would have been a great upgrade for their Terminators. Unfortunately, they're not allowed to take it. It's independent characters only. So, moving right along to the Death Guard. The Power Scythe. The Squad Sergeant can take one. Any character who has access to a Power Fist may instead take a Power Scythe. It's a good weapon, the Power Scythe. Take it. And also Chem Munitions, which turns your Heavy Flamers into shredding Heavy Flamers, I believe, at the penalty of getting hot, if my memory serves me correct. The Chem Flamers are better. Pretty much just better. And of course, if you're running the Death Guard Rite of War, or one of their Rites of War, the Reaping, you can take rag grenades on any character in the army. That includes Squad Sergeants, and rag grenades are a no-brainer. Terminators equipped with Power Mauls, Strength 6, dropping your enemy Toughness to 3, that means instant killing, no feel, no pain, Space Marines. That's strong. Things like Thalax, Toughness 5 Mechanic and Constructs, 3 wounds each, bitch to kill, even with Terminators, because there's just so many wounds on a unit if you manage to get into combat with them, which you're not doing with Cataphracti, let's be honest, you're doing it with Tartarus here. If you can get into combat with them, drop their toughness down to 4, you instant kill the Thalax. So a squad of 5 Terminators here is more effective against Thalax than a squad of 10 from pretty much any other legion. Very, very strong. And of course, Chem Munitions again, especially in Zone Mortalis, is just one of the most brutal fucking things ever. Alright, the Thousand Suns. They have an upgrade option, the Asphyx Shells, shredding on your combi bolters. On the bolter part, guys, not the melter guns and the flamer parts and whatever. Strong, and pretty cheap, really, as an upgrade. It's better than a lot of other legions get, and pretty much a must-take on Terminators if you're going to be going with combi bolters. If you're only putting one bolter on the squad or something, it's probably not worth it. But if you have a squad of 10, and you're going at least 8 bolt guns, yeah, I'd take the Asphyx Shells every time as a Thousand Suns player. And the other weird janky upgrade they have, which is pretty much a, yeah, Brotherhood of Psychers for the unit. Now, downside, you don't have force weapons. Upside, you just cast powers that are useful to you. Perhaps going the Telekinesis Cult? Because, well, I say Telekinesis Cult because it's the easiest way for people to remember. That's the one that can use the Telekinesis Discipline. if I say Raptora, Pavoni, Pyromancy type thing, people will go, what cult is that? What do they do? One of the cults of the Thousand Suns gives you +1 invulnerable save. This turns Tartarus into Cataphracti. That's good. It turns Cataphracti, though, into Super Cataphracti. That's real good. And Cataphracti with the Thousand Suns, taking the Telekinesis Cult, have access to a 1 in 6 chance of getting the Teleport power. And if you get Teleport, that's great. That means you can zip around the battlefield, doing an extra 12 inches a turn on your Cataphracti. Turn 2 charges, even turn 1. Yes, please. But unlikely, considering you can't teleport and charge. But Cataphracti are suddenly pretty useful, with the Brotherhood of Psychers teleporting them around. They don't rely on a transport. Downside is, it's still only a 1 in 6 chance to get the power. You have to get the power dice off, you have to actually roll and cast it, you have to successfully cast it, the other guy has to successfully for you, not deny it. That's a lot of things that have to go right to get that power off. So whilst Brotherhood of Psychers is handy and may provide the occasional situational buff, it's not the sort of thing you can plan on when trying to make your Terminators the be-all end-all. And it basically will come down to this as a Thousand Suns player. If you're going to put your Terminators into the thick of the action, where they need survivability, go Cataphracti. But if you want Terminators that are just consistent all-rounders, and you don't need to rely on any one particular skill set, go the Tartarus. All the way. Alright, the Sons of Horus have no upgrades, armor boosts, or any other buffs that they can give their Terminators. Not exactly what I would call great. So, what would I suggest with the Sons of Horus? Well, Legion Terminators have their place. Justurian are good now that they have been knocked down from the ridiculous 75 points they started out at, which was a fucking joke. Legion Terminators, for me, for armies like the Sons of Horus, are objective holders. You take small squads of 5, and you can sit them on objectives, and you basically say to people, hey, you're going to need a lot of firepower to kill my squad and take my objective. Conversely, if you want killing power, other legions do it better. Sons of Horus are pretty good in close combat though, and Terminators, with the bulky special rule that they have, they will help you with getting your boosts for outnumbering in close combat and such. But they're not a legion that super benefits from them. Speaking of Justurian, which are and 2 wound Terminators and elite Terminator units, I often complain about 2 wound Terminators, and this was brought up just yesterday's video. Person said, hey, you complain about 2 wound Terminators, and then you complain about 1 wound Terminators. Well, of course, but to me it's all about perspective, and I'll go into it now for everyone watching who's also worrying the same thing. 2 wounds is great if you can pick the situations they're fighting in, i.e. there's not demolisher cannons, for example, on the other side, and that you're not getting into fist fights with things which are strength 8, such as Power Fists and Dreadnoughts with Power Fists. They're basically going to be the end of your Terminators with 2 wounds. But if you are getting into fights which are more advantageous, where you aren't fighting a lot of Power Fists, where you are not fighting Dreadnoughts, then 2 wounds is always going to be superior to 1 wound on a Terminator. That's the perspective I want to bring. If you're going up against, say, 1,000 Suns, and they're rocking Segment, who all have force weapons, and you're running 2 wound Terminators, it's not going to turn out well for you. If you rock up against someone with your Red Butchers, for example, and they're all rocking Power Fists, probably not going to turn out that well for you. But if you rock up to a game and someone's rocking, I don't know, Custodes, and they've got a Custodian Guardian squad with Guardian Spears, and you're rocking Red Butchers, well, yeah, they're going to get some wounds in. They're going to hit you on 3s, they're going to wound you on 3s or even 2s, and you're only going to get your invulnerable saves. But on the other hand, you're going to tear the asshole out of that Custodes squad that same turn, so better, right? Alright, Word Bearers. We have one very mediocre and situational weapon available to their squad sergeants, the Tainted Weapon. Basically, it's like an AP nil weapon that if you do successfully get past an armor save, instant kills a person. I don't really know the rules super well for tainted weapons because they're poo. And there's your answer. Tartarus or Cataphracti? Depends. Do you have Gel Vorback that are going to get stuck in while your slow-ass Cataphracti drag their asses up to the front lines? If not, go the Tartarus. Salamanders, another funny one. Well, Salamanders are slow as a legion, straight off the bat. So, Tartarus armor is better. However, because of the fact you're a slow legion, Tartarus Sweeping Advance is actually negatively modified by the fact that you're Salamanders. So I'd actually lean towards Cataphracti for them. And also, they do have the Storm Shield option, but their Storm Shields only add +1 to their invulnerable save. Unlike the just flat out 3+ invul that the Imperial Fists get. So, whilst Tartarus goes to a 4+ save, Cataphracti does go to the mighty 3+ save. Very fancy. And of course, being Salamanders, the Squad Sergeant gets access to a mastercrafted weapon. Now, the pros and cons here is that taking Storm Shields makes them a lot more survivable. But 35 points for a Terminator. At 40 points, just 40 points, you can buy a Fire Drake Terminator. Which is just outright better, because their weapon skill 5 have an additional wound. And you can also use the models as part of a command squad. And you'll have a better command squad. So, yeah. Both units, the Fire Drakes and the regular Terminators, can both take Storm Shields. They have basically access to all the same war gear. Fire Drake Terminators shit all over Cataphracti or Tartarus, identically equipped. The only time might come in handy as a weird build is Tartarus with Storm Shields for better mobility? Maybe, because the fact they can run? That's really about it. They're not really going to ever sweep stuff down unless it's super low initiative or just can't run. Yeah, Salamanders, the weird situation they're in. Alright, Raven Guard. Any model equipped with Lightning Cores may upgrade them to Raven's Talons. That's going to get expensive fast, but Jesus would it be funny. Raven's Talons are basically Lightning Cores, but they gain Rending. Yeah, that's better. That's way better than Lightning Cores. It's expensive though, so a whole unit of Terminators with them would be very pricey. But in a squad of 5, having 2 with Raven's Talons, maybe a Squad Sergeant and one other, fuck yeah, why not? It's just outright superior, and they do have a chance of being able to kill other Terminators with the Rending. They're getting shreds, they're getting rerolls to wound, and they're AP3 anyway, so they're good against monstrous creatures. And there are a lot out there. They're good against demons, the Runestorm, fantastic in fact. And they will have the possibility, however unlikely, of being able to hurt vehicles. So, don't forget, by the way, they're bulky. And bulky Raven Guard get +1 strength because of Furious Charge. So you're potentially talking Strength 5 Lightning Cores with Rending. That's strong, guys. Real strong. Yeah, Tartarus again over the Cataphracti because the rest of your army's infiltrating, they're up in the thick of things. Plus you can't take many heavy supports with Raven Guard, especially if you take their Rite of War Decapitation Strike. Yeah, Tartarus, they've got the mobility to get in and support the rest of your army that's already doing the fighting. Okay, last but not least, the Alpha Legion. Bane Strike Ammunition, Power Daggers, and Venom Sphere Harnesses. Well, Power Daggers are terrible weapons. When do you take them? For fluffy reasons on characters, and as the other specialist weapon for your Praetor, so that their Paragon Blade gets +1 attack. Or their Power Fist gets +1 attack, or their Thunderhammer gets +1 attack. You get where I'm going with this. Power Daggers are crap. Alright, Bane Strike Ammunition, though, is pretty good. On 6s to wound, it drops Marine armor saves, basically. It becomes an AP3 weapon. Downside is only 18 inches range, but upside is they're Terminators. they're happy to get close to enemy units. So, with mutable tactics allowing things like infiltration on all your Legiones Astartes models, taking a squad of basically combi bolter equipped Terminators and using them to Alpha Strike enemy Space Marines is a legitimate option, especially in Zone Mortalis. And doing so with Tartarus Terminator armor in Zone Mortalis, where you can fire at your own ballistic skill in Overwatch, makes them outright brutally strong against Space Marines. So, Bane Strike ammunition, it's good, but at 10 points a model, it's gonna cost you. And the Venom Sphere harness, yeah, you'd be silly not to take it. It's giving you assault grenade bonuses and some negative penalties to the enemy. Yeah, do it. Alright, so that's the Legion Terminator types. Overall, the Tartarus, the boosted mobility, the fact that it's going to get involved in the battle earlier on, makes it the better armor choice. The only time that the Cataphractii really comes into its own is if you need a unit with more survivability. Is having the armor better or worse than just attaching Apothecary to a Tartarus unit? I'd say probably an Apothecary with a Tartarus is the better option. Feel No Pain and the Invul Save staying together, as opposed to going the Cataphractii, losing all your mobility. Yeah. The only time the Feel No Pain is going to get negated is the Strength 8+, or in the case of the Iron Hands, Strength 9+, or in the case of Stone Gauntlet running chaps, Strength 10. So really, it's going to pay off more for you having the Feel No Pain on units than it is going to go for that 4+ invul. Of course, the Cataphractii with 3+ invulnerable saves is so tough and strong that, yeah, that too is viable. But you really need transports to make the most of it, because you're just not going to get there. I know this the hard way. I've deep struck with Perturabo back under his old rules, where you could deep strike all your Terminators in your army in turn 1, and put in Perturabo, 10 Siege Tyrants, his command squad, and 3 squads of 5 Terminators in Cataphractii armor onto the board in the enemy's deployment zone, and still not seeing combat till the 3rd turn. Because that's how long it took to get them anywhere. It's fucking rough, guys. So, if you're using the Cataphractii, yeah, they're tough, but they're so damn slow. But they look so cool. But are they cool looking than Tartarus? Well, that I don't have an answer for it. Anyway, this was rapid fire machine gun at you, a lot of information to take in, but hopefully I've helped people understand what the 2 Terminator armor types are, what they do, what they specialize in, and what Legion benefits from what type, and what benefits they have to offer that armor. Obviously, Legion traits play into it too, and I occasionally did mention them, but very rarely was it a cut and dry, take this type of Terminator. Hopefully though, I've been able to give you some useful information in this video. Thank you all for watching, thoughts and feedback below, and I'll see you all next time.